Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome. Parshas Shelach. Actually, on a what's it called? A commercial note. Something I made a mistake about, but I don't know if I pointed it out in our class. We are currently 1 week behind the land of Eretz Israel because on the last day of Shavuot, which was Shabbat, so we read a special reading because it was Chag. But the land of Israel was not Chag anymore because they only have 1 day of Shavuot. And so therefore they read Parshat Naso on that Shabbos. So each week they're actually one ahead of us these weeks. So we're doing Shelach this week. They're actually doing Korach. Next week we'll do Korach. So I thought that we don't catch up with them until Matot Maseh, the end of the book about Midbar. Turns out this year, because of I did the research actually, and I'm not really sure that I understand why. But in some years when Israel's ahead of us by a week, we'll both do Chukat Balak together, and then we'll catch up Matos Maseh, which means at the end of the Torah, at the end of the book of Bamidbar, the last two Torah portions. So that sometimes those are separated, sometimes they're together. So in Israel, they'll do it separated, and we'll do it together. That way we'll catch up. Did you get that? Okay? In other words, they'll do over 2 weeks, we'll do in 1 week, and then we'll become even again, because right now we're one behind. But this year is different, and I'm not sure I totally understand why. I looked up the sources. Mostly it's drush, it's not really practical. This year we'll catch up Chukat Balak. So this was in our calendar. It's been in our calendar hundreds of years. Right, so what's going to happen is this week we are Shalach and they are Korach. Next week we are Korach and they are Chukat. And the week after that, we are Chukat and Balak and they're just Balak. So that way the week after that we're aligned at Pinchas, which it has something to do with, at least homiletically, I saw in the name of the Bnei Yisachar, that we do everything we can to get Pinchas, Matos, and Masei into the 3 weeks. Because in all 3 of those weeks, all 3 of those parshiot, in one form or another, there's discussion about inheriting the land of Israel. So during the 3 weeks when we're in a state of such tremendous mourning, so we want, if possible, we want all 3 of those Torah portions to appear in that 3 weeks as a form of consolation to us, because we're in mourning over the loss of the land. So it's all these promises that we will inherit and have the land.
Even though Haftarahs are opposite.
Right. And the Haftarahs completely get moved around, depends on when and what. Okay. Speaking of Haftarahs, okay, tonight we're going to talk a little bit about our Parsha as it relates to this week's Haftarah. As we know, the Haftarah is an excerpt from the prophets that speaks thematically about the same thing that the Torah portion speaks of. And just historically, even though I think we've talked about this in the past, but just to remind maybe newer viewers or new of us that are here today. By the way, can you hear me up back there? Just checking. Okay. Okay. So where does the Haftarah come from? All the nations of the world that have tried to destroy us, chas v'shalom, throughout our history, all really understood that our spinach, if you remember Popeye, Dr. Lally, do you remember Popeye? Okay. Dr. Firistella remembers Popeye, right? Okay, I know that. Our spinach is the Torah. No matter what they try to do to us, they know ultimately our spinach is the Torah. The Torah is what saves us every single time. And they all know it. The Jews know it, the Goyim know it, everybody knows it. So when the Romans were trying to destroy us, and look, the Romans went out of their way to destroy us. They killed many, many hundreds of thousands of us, literally murdered them, okay? And that didn't work. They saw that didn't work. So they decided, okay, what's the only way they're going to destroy us is they'll take away our Torah. That'll destroy us. So what they do, The Romans prohibited the reading of the Torah portion, the weekly Torah portion. They realized that the Jews' deep-rooted connection to the Torah comes in the form of every single week we read a portion of the Torah, and in that way, by the time you come to the end of the year, you've studied the entire Torah. So they said, if we can stop them from that, we can get them away from the Torah, chas v'shalom, we'll be able to do away with the Jews. That's what they decided, okay? So they prohibited, and they were the ruling party, they could do anything they wanted, much like the recent elections here in Los Angeles. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I just had to get that one in. Okay? And nobody cares for some reason. I don't know why, but nobody cares. Anyway, so what happened was they prohibited the public reading of the Torah. Finished. And they thought that way they'd get rid of us. What happened? The sages gathered together and they chose excerpts from the prophets because the Romans didn't prohibit reading the prophets. They only prohibited reading the 5 books. They didn't understand that the Tanakh is a Tanakh. It's all together. So they did not prohibit readings from the prophets. So our sages got together and they took excerpts from the prophets that had the same theme and idea as the Torah portion. And they said, we're going to read these publicly now. What would be the gain? The gain would be that A, we'd still be reading something publicly, and B, it would remind everybody, what was this week's Torah portion? Look at the Haftorah. I'll remember what the Torah portion was. So it maintained the connection between the Jewish people and the weekly Torah portion. Ultimately, the Romans went the way of all flesh, which is not unusual. Everyone that started up with us throughout history doesn't exist anymore. And I just said it out loud. So all of you want to start up with us now, you will be history too. Maybe you won't even be history. Maybe no one will ever even remember that you existed. Bezrat Hashem. But you're certainly not going to chas v'shalom do anything to us.
Didn't the Greek also try something?
Everybody tried something. Yes, the Greek, that's the story of Hanukkah. They prohibited the study of Torah.
The study of Torah.
Right.
Not
Right.
The reading of the parasha.
The Romans prohibited public reading. I guess they learned from the Greeks that you're not going to stop us from studying Torah in private. At least try to prohibit it in public. Right. Anyway, P.S. After the decree was annulled, or probably after the collapse of the Roman Empire, so then the decree automatically was annulled. Now we had these excerpts that we had been reading for a very long time. It was a very beautiful thing. There were even many congregations, still today, there are many congregations that have a Haftorah scroll. Looks like the Torah scroll. My sister in Frankfurt, Germany, every Shabbat, they take out a Torah scroll, and they also take out a Haftorah scroll from the Ark. It's sitting in the Ark. They don't read out of the Haftorah scroll. They read out of the Torah scroll. The Haftorah, they read out of a Chumash. But for tradition purposes, they bring out the scroll. More Torah. Yes, Fardis have Torah scroll. Very interesting. Okay, anyway, so what our sages said was that we're going to add another person to the reading of the Torah, because we're not going to call somebody up just to read the Haftorah. We have to call them up to read the Torah as well. So we'll call somebody up to read the maftir. That's what's called the maftir. It's a repeat of a number of verses at the end of each Torah portion. And then the person who gets the maftir, he also reads the Haftorah, the portion of the prophets. So throughout the generations, we've always studied these works because they're very important works and they have very important messages for us. And particularly when we're talking in conjunction with the connection between the Haftorahs and the actual Torah portion to which they are appended. And Chassidus goes into great length of analyzing these Haftorahs and how they're actually connected to the Torah portion. So we're going to talk about that tonight. Now, the connection between the Haftorah this week and the Torah portion is a pretty obvious one. In the Torah portion, Moshe sends 12 spies to spy out the land of Israel. In the Haftorah, Joshua sends 2 spies to spy out Yericho. In fact, one of those 2 spies is also one of the original 12, the only one who survives, Kalev. He sends Kalev and Pinchas. That's who he sends to be his two spies. Now, let's look at some of the different.
Pinchas, the Pinchas? Pinchas?
The Pinchas. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's tons on this because when it comes to okay, you want to digress a little bit? Okay, we'll digress. If you look in the Haftorah, if you look in today's Haftorah, in our Chumash, it's on 298 and 299, you'll notice that there's the whole story. They come there and Rachav hides them, right? Um, where is it here? Oh, here. In verse 4, that's where it is. I couldn't find it. In verse 4, this is from the book of Joshua, chapter 2, verse 1 through 24. So in verse 4, it says, "Vatikach isha shnei anashim," because immediately after they come into her house, the authorities in Jericho hear that they're there. So they immediately send word to her, we're the people that came to your house, we want them arrested, blah, 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 right? So she knows they're coming. So Vatikach isha shnei anashim, she takes the two men. Are you looking at Pasuk Dalet? What's the next word? Vatitzpeno. Titzpeno is the singular. She hides him. She took the two men, but she hides him. In the singular, why didn't she hide both of them? You ready for this?
Sure.
So the commentaries say, Pinchas was more malach, was more angel than human. He was more angel than he was human. So he didn't need to hide. He just disappeared.
The invisible man.
Yep.
Here's another.
Pinchas becomes Eliyahu Hanavi. We know that, right? Okay. Pinchas was hid. That's why it says Vatitzpeno in the singular. Of course, this is homily. This is medrash. But the medrash says, why does it say Vatitzpeno? Because only Kalev needed to be hidden. Pinchas didn't need to be hidden. He was invisible.
Kalev was also a good man.
Tzaddik, yes, but still human. Pinchas was more angel than he was human. That's the point.
But Pinchas also did not, went against Moshe too. No?
Pinchas?
Well, that was Korah.
Korach.
Right, wrong guy.
Why did you say Caleb was the only one that survived? There were two of them.
Yehoshua. He's the leader. He's
not-
who's sending them.
he's sending them.
Yeshua's the one who's sending them. Okay, so now let's go back to this. Okay, now let's do a dive. Okay? That's correct. Let's do a dive. Moshe sends 12 spies. Yeshua sends 2. Moshe sends them throughout the entire land of Israel. La'arko l'rachba. In fact, so broad was their mission. So broad was their mission that Rashi says that they had to have shortening of the way. Kvitzat haderech. Why? Because there's no way they could have covered the entire land in only 40 days. But Hashem deliberately made them go real quickly through because Hashem, as Yeshua pointed out, already anticipated that this is going to go south. And when it goes south, he's going to say 40 years in the desert corresponding to the 40 days of the spies' tour of Israel. So Hashem said, if I let them take a normal amount to tour the entire land of Israel, and I still do a day for a year, then they're going to be stuck in the desert more years. So Hashem made the trip go fast, and it would only be 40 days. So it'd be 40 days, 40 years. Rashi.
Did he shrink the land or did he make them go faster?
That's a really good question. How does Kvitzas Aderech work? I don't know. But the next time I experience it, I promise you I will share it with you.
I'm waiting to hear from you.
Because so far it hasn't worked for me. Every time I get on the car, it's not Kvitzas Aderech, it's Arichas Aderech. I enter the GPS, my location, and as I'm driving, it goes from 20 minutes to 30 minutes to 40 minutes. Welcome to Los Angeles. But don't fear, our next mayor is going to fix that. Anyway, okay, let's go back to this. So Yeshua sends 2, and Moshe sends 12. Yeshua sends them just to Jericho. And in fact, they don't even get into the city of Jericho. They only get to the gate pretty much because Rachel lives in the gate. But just to Jericho, Moshe sends them to go tour the entire land of Israel. Moshe is told Shelach lecha at the beginning of our Torah portion. And Rashi says L'daitcha. I'm not telling you to do this. Who's calling me? Can you go check who that is? I'm in the middle of a class. Can I call you afterwards? Okay, bye. Moshe says, Hashem tells Moshe, Shlach l'cha l'daitcha. If you want to send them, but I'm not telling you to send them. Rashi, Shlach l'cha, you're the one who's sending them, not me. If you want to send them, go ahead. I'm not telling you to send them, okay? Yehoshua, it's not the case. Hashem instructs Yehoshua, send in these 2 spies into Jericho. So even though we understand that the parallel between the Parsha and the Haftorah is that they both talk about sending spies into the land of Israel, but there's actually a bunch of differences between the 2 experiences. A bunch of differences between them. Why and what? Theme of tonight's class. Okay. We have to go to Chassidus for this. Yericho is from the root word reach, or smell. Smell, mystically, is a metaphor for how you emanate towards others. In the mystical realm, that's a reference to the levushim, the garments of the soul. The clothes make the man. You've heard the expression? No. Sheesh. What does your generation know? Does your generation know anything?
They know to vote
Besides
They
LOL?
know who to vote for a crappy mayor.
Clearly.
He's a yeshiva boy.
Okay, I love it. I knew the clothes makes the man. I was also a yeshiva boy. Okay? Right? So your clothes define you. People get dressed in a way that's going to define them and how they want to present themselves to the world. So the garments of the soul are symbolically what we mean Yericho. When we say Yericho, smell, which is your emanation to the world around you, and the garments are also an emanation to the world around you. So in the Zohar, it says that Yericho is the garments. What are the garments of the soul? Do you know?
No.
We said it last time.
And we've said it a number of times. 3 garments. The soul has 3 garments.
Thought, speech, and action.
Ishkayach. Yes, thought, speech, and action. Machshava, dibur, maaseh are the 3 garments of the soul. In other words, the soul exists in its essence, and the way the soul is able to express itself, so that even you so that the subconscious becomes conscious, and then extending from there, so that the world knows what your soul is about. It expresses itself in your thoughts that leave your subconscious to your conscious thoughts, your speech, the things that you say, and your actions that you do. Those are the expressions of your soul. So thought, speech, and action are the 3 garments of the soul. Okay. 7 nations of Canaan. That's your 7 emotional attributes. the conquering of the 7 nations of Canaan, symbolically, is the conquering of your 7 emotional attributes. So where we're at is as follows. There's 2 different processes, and if you think about it, it requires 2 completely different energies. To take control of your thought, speech, and action, that's something that's within the realm of possibility of every human being. Everybody can take control of their thought, speech, and action. Thought, a little bit harder, but let's deal, and in fact, we talk about these 3 garments as thought is considered an inner garment, speech is considered a more external garment, and my action, of course, is the most external garment. But Dibur and Masa are considered external, while speech is considered an internal garment. Thought, I'm sorry, is considered an internal garment. So now let's think about this. Everybody can control Masa. We're not cows. When we become out of control in our action, it's because we've allowed. I couldn't help myself? Baloney. Of course you could. My mother, when I was a kid, used to tell me, quote, one of the Borscht Belt comedians that she loved, who I think it was Sammy Levinson, was a famous comedian. She loved quoting him. He had a lot of social commentary. And Sammy Levinson said, this was Sammy Levinson's twist on something that already says in the Mishnah, in Pirkei Avot. He said, it's not hard to sound smart. Sammy Levinson said, it's not hard to sound smart. All you have to do is think of something stupid to say and don't say it. It's not hard to sound smart. Just think of something stupid to say and don't say it. Right? But, and of course, the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says, Siag l'chachma shtika, the key to wisdom is silence. But if you think about it, Masa and Dibur are always controllable. For everybody. All you have to do is want to.
There are people who have mental health issues that they cannot control their thoughts.
Even they can be, not thoughts. We didn't say thoughts.
Thoughts. You can
I'm only talking about speech and action now.
Well, actually, my thought is thought, speech, and action are one.
Well,
Thought
yes,
controls speech.
of course.
Thought controls action.
Of course it does. The emanating process usually goes thought to speech to action, correct. But you can go the other way too. You can take control of your actions without having real control of your thoughts.
You have to have stronger thoughts to control them.
Not necessarily. You just do the right thing. That's where just do it comes from.
Again, that's a thought.
The initial part of it is the thought, but you can stop it from becoming action. You can stop.
I think about good actions, and I
Wait, no. That you're correct. You're correct about that. You are correct about that. But let me explain to you what I'm saying. You're correct in what you just said. But let me explain to you what I just said. What I just said was, you could be thinking, I want to do this wrong act. I really want to do it. And I really, really want to do it, but I'm not going to. But I won't do it. That you only have control at that point on the realm of action. You don't have control of the thought because the thought is still going wild in your head.
And do we believe that a complete tzaddik has even control of the thought?
He not only has control of his thoughts, we're going to get even deeper in just a second, okay? So the process whereby a person takes control, every single person can if they choose to. And sometimes it requires Pavlovian training. You have to take the time because most of us today are reactive in a very Pavlovian way. And we can train ourselves to use a term that you'll understand because this is the generation uses this word, trigger the other way. Nothing compels you to trigger incorrectly. I tell this joke all the time. My grandmother used to tell this, and I didn't understand the depth of it at the time. But my grandmother used to tell me the story. You ready for this, Dr. Lally? A Jewish couple was married for 40 years, okay? And every time she did the laundry, she would fold his undershirts. When she folded his undershirts, she folded his undershirts inside out. This completely infuriated him. Infuriated him. Every time he went to put on an undershirt, his undershirts were inside out. And he would scream, Suda, Sarah. I think the joke sounds much better in Yiddish, but it will work in English as well, okay? What is the problem? You're going to fold the laundry anyway. Why can't you fold my undershirts correctly? And this happens every single time he puts on an undershirt. For nearly 40 years, they're married. One day, his wife decides, you know what? You know what? I'm going to straighten out all the undershirts for him. And she takes all his undershirts and she makes them straight and folds them, puts them in his drawer, and she's waiting for the reaction. He walks in, opens the drawer, takes out an undershirt, assumes that they're inside out. He turns the undershirt the other way and puts it on. He looks at himself in the mirror and he says, and it's inside out. And he starts to scream, Surah, how many times do I have to tell you? As you turn the shirt inside out, turn the undershirt straight. Look at me. She says, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? I turned all of your undershirts correctly. They were all straight. What are you talking about, the inside out? He said, can you imagine how crazy this is? You straightened out the shirt, I straightened out in the shirt, and it's still wrong. So you have to decide, right, at some point, how you're going to trigger. In the joke, the husband is still flying off the handle, right? In the joke, he's still flying off the handle because his undershirt is inside out. But he could have just as easily, in the joke, okay, the joke is only a joke, it's a parable, it's not a real story. But even in the joke, he could have just as easily triggered the other way and burst out laughing. I can't believe it, you finally turned my undershirts inside out. You finally did it? And here, like an idiot, I went and turned it around, and here I am standing like a dummy with my undershirt inside out. That is ROTFL. Rolling on the floor laughing. Dr. Lally, you're going to have to catch up with the times. Okay. Today, they don't even write ROTFL anymore. Now there's just an emoji that expresses ROTFL. So they don't use that acronym anymore. Anyway, the point being, you can control your actions easily. You can control your speech easily. You just have to decide that's what you want to do. Thought, much harder. Much harder.
It's a bit harder if there's addiction too, right?
All of this is addictive. The reason why you react incorrectly, whether in action or in speech, is because that can be considered addictive behavior. Because you accustomed yourself in a Pavlovian way to trigger incorrectly. And so now that's your addictive behavior.
So, speaking of thought, speech and action, these spies were high-level people. They weren't just, they had a...
You're going to have to listen to the podcast. I literally went into that.
Okay.
Okay?
My question is really regarding whether or not, if their idea was that we're not ready, they don't want to go into the land, they want to stay with wanted
which
to
is
find.
how Chabad Chassidus explains the story.
Right. So my question is, through the punishment of their spying, what they did wrong,
So one of the things the Rebbe asks is they didn't really get punished, did
is
they?
Hashem concurring with them, basically? Right.
Previous year's Tuesday night Shelach class.
Another question is, Shlofahad did the same thing, right? He wanted to show.
And then they weren't punished, they were rewarded. Right?
They would die.
But that's what they wanted.
I mean, okay, like the David,
Huh?
kind of like the David.
In that sense. But let's get back to this.
Sorry, real quick on that addiction.
Uh-huh.
It's come to a point where you've made all the wrong decisions.
Uh-huh.
Your thoughts and actions.
Uh-huh.
Physically, it's hard for you to.
Hard,
even-
yes, but Pavlovian
so you have
training.
to go-
But you can Pavlovian train something. A dog that was never trained, was never housebroken, right? Some gonna decide he's gonna let his dog, you know what, all over the place, right? And then one day, either he decides or his son inherits the dog and says, "Oh no, dude, you're not doing that in my house," right? You can train that dog now.
No, but I'm just saying, like, it becomes for the physics of a person. For that addiction, it takes over the physics of a person.
For sure.
Even if you have the thought.
Some of
to
those
do the
people,
right thing,
some of those people even
they can't-
become
they
grossly
can't.
overweight. I don't know any like that, but it happens. What are you laughing about? What's so funny?
Nothing.
Okay, good. Yeah, 100%. Thought is harder. The process with thought, the easiest way to be able to take control of thought is to redirect thought. You can't really control your thoughts, but you can redirect them. Simple. You're in the middle of the Amida, and all of a sudden you realize, I'm not thinking about the Amida at all. I'm thinking about, I don't know what, Bitcoin, all my stocks, all my investments, or what it is I have to do right after davening. Okay? As soon as you realize that that's what's going on in your head when you're supposed to be in the middle of the Amida prayer, you can redirect. You might not be able to control those other thoughts, but you can redirect. You can force yourself to read the words of the Amida and the proper translation and make sure you understand them. Harder than speech and action, yes, it's true, but also controllable. Okay, here's the point I'm getting at. However, so the garments of the soul, meaning the manner in which the soul expresses itself and presents itself to the world on the outside, is controllable. Meaning, instead of allowing the thought, speech, and action of your animal soul to take control, you can subjugate the thought, speech, and action of your animal soul to the thought, speech, and action of your godly soul. And thereby take control and make sure, whether it's taivas, that extra slice of pizza, or whether it's dibur, demeaning speech, or lashon hara, etc., or even crazy thoughts. You can control those by forcing the godly soul's thought, speech, and action to dominate the animal soul's thought, speech, and action. But then there's something completely different. You know what that is? Actually conquering and vanquishing the 7 attributes of the animal soul that are manifesting themselves in the thought, speech, and action of the animal soul. Now we're not talking about, or to use a term which we've introduced many, many times in this class, and classic in Chassidus, and you already have it in your notes, iskafia versus isabchia. Remember? Yeah. Subjugation versus transformation. So the domination of the thought, speech, and action, that's what we would call subjugation. Actual transformation of the 7 midas, that's what we would call transformation. And therefore, Hashem's conversation with Moshe now sounds like this, versus his conversation with Joshua. Moshe says, let's set in motion the actual transformation of the 7 emotional attributes of the animal soul as presented in the form of the 7 nations of Canaan. Let's dominate the 7 meters of the animal soul. We're going to transform them completely. And so therefore, we're going to send spies whose purpose is going to be, goodness gracious, you could think I'm, I don't know, the CEO of something. There. Okay? And so therefore, making fun of me. I don't have the sound, it's still beeping. And so therefore, we're going to send 12 spies and they're going to cover the entire land of Israel because we're covering the entire 7 nations. Hashem says to him, now it'll shut up. Hashem says to him, I'm not telling you to do this because this is a higher level order of change. But if you want them to go, then shlach lecha. In order to be able to achieve the total transformation of the 7 midot, you need the energy that comes from the preeminent neshama klalit, the all-encompassing soul, the preeminent leader of the generation, Moshe. So Hashem tells Moshe, shlach lecha, you are going to have to send them because they're going to need your kind of energy if they're going to be successful in dominating the 7 nations of Canaan. I'm not telling them to do that because this does not really work for the common man. This does not work for the common man.
What does this mean? They were going to conquer them anyway. I don't understand what we're saying here. They were thinking about conquering the 7 nations.
Right?
That's what they were going to do. You're saying Hashem told him, don't, I'm not saying do it, you do it.
This is not the time. No.
Weren't they going
Transformation. No, well, yeah, but they weren't ready. See, they weren't ready. You see, they weren't ready. Right? In other words, let me answer your question. Ultimately, the initial conquest of the land of Eretz Yisrael is a top-down event. Sending spies into the land of Eretz Yisrael is a bottom-up event. Got it? Yeah.
Hashem is doling out the punishment. He says, "But my servant called because a different spirit was with him. And he called me wholeheartedly, and I should bring him to the land to which he came, and his offspring shall possess it." So, who's right? You're telling me that spies, in a way, Hashem concurred with what their intention was, but then you're saying
You really have to hear the podcast, but the bottom line is they created a self-fulfilling prophecy. In other words, when they said we can't do it, Hashem said, if you say you can't do it, then you can't. Think about it this way, Yoshua. Is there anything Hashem can't do? Of course not, right? There's nothing that Hashem can't do, right? And therefore, if Hashem should choose to empower us to also be able to do, and to also be above the limitation of anything, that there's anything we can't do, Hashem could do that too. Could empower us. Hashem could empower us to have the ability to do anything.
saying Hashem decided to affirm our negativity?
Huh?
He decided to affirm our negativity?
If we choose, but Hashem gives us free choice. So if we choose not to the teacher the teacher has a student. He knows the student is better, more capable than he allows himself to be. And he does everything he can to encourage the student to step it up. And he gives the student a test and he tells the student, you can do this. I know you can do this. I know I've touched the material. I know you know the material. I know you can do this. Student sits down, looks at the test paper, head in hands, and goes, I can't do this. The teacher says, you know what? If you say you can't, you can't. The only reason you can't is because you say you can't.
Sometimes,
If you choose to say you can't, huh?
sometimes you need to fail in order to grow.
Unfortunately, you're right.
Where's the 13th spot? The 13th.
There isn't, there's only 12.
Where's the one from Levi?
There isn't.
So not no spot from Levi was.
The Levi tribe is always connected. They're plugged in. Did you understand the Marshall? Okay.
But again, Hashem can inspire if he wanted to.
Sure, but he doesn't. He wants us to make our own choice. He wants the bottom up.
So again, I come back and say Moshe had prophecy. Where's his prophecy? He knew it. He probably wants us to be in 40 years in the desert.
You know, that's a really good question. That's a really good question. And
What's the question?
Repeat the question for the.
the question he asked is, since Moshe was a prophet, didn't he know how this was going to end? It was going to end badly? The answer is yes and no. Someone just sent me a meme yesterday of, I guess it's one of these television shows, Small Claims Court. So the top half of the meme is, so you went to a psychic, but you didn't pay them? Why did you think you didn't need to pay them? And the defendant says, if she was a psychic, then she knew I wasn't going to pay her. If she was really a psychic, she should have known I wasn't going to pay her. Okay, that's just funny. Okay. No, the Nevi'im see everything, and Moshe sees everything, and if I knew the answer to that question really and how that works, the yes and no in that, I'd be Moshe. And I know this is going to come as a shock to you. I am not Moshe.
So when Hashem says a different spirit was
But I mean, why are you asking that question about Moshe? You can ask that question about Hashem. Kavayachol, anthropomorphically speaking. Go ahead.
So when Hashem says a different spirit was
Uh-huh.
is that something coming from him or coming
Yes.
not from Hashem?
That's why he went to Hebron.
So that spirit he had was individual.
Yeah, he already saw this was going to be a big challenge. And that's why he traveled to Hebron to get the energy so he could withstand.
He knew the conspiracy and disagreed with the conspiracy.
Yes.
So Hashem is concurring with him.
You got to listen to the
He's
podcast.
concurring with both, it sounds like.
Yes. Yes. I don't really mean that as an unabashed advertisement. It's really the line of the podcast to answer these questions.
Talking about college just for people. You know.
Yes, we're talking about Kalev, how he survived. So what happens is Hashem tells Moshe, you're looking to set it up for a conquest of the 7 nations, the 7 midos. You want it to go bottom up. It can be done, but it's going to have to be shlach l'cha. They're going to have to take your energy in with them if they're going to be able to successfully do that. We tried. You have to understand one thing, very important thing to understand about our history, and particularly the Torah. Every event in the Torah, whether in the Torah proper or in the Nevi'im or the Ketuvim, or even throughout the ages after that, every single time we fall on our face, it's actually a tremendous accomplishment. Because the goal is Mashiach. And in a catch-22, we would not be able to ultimately reach the place where we could actually reveal Mashiach and the Geula the way it's really supposed to be revealed had we not fallen on our faces so many times throughout history. Each one of those is a step along the way. The Rebbe always uses it in terms of the verse in a classic Chassidic interpretation of a verse in the Navi. Ki mei tzeischa me'eretz Mitzrayim arenu niflois. Like the days that you left the land of Egypt, I intend to show you wonders. That's what, speaking of the Messianic age. And the classic question in Chassidus is, what do you mean ki mei? Ki yom. We only left Egypt one day. We didn't leave Egypt in days. It didn't take 2 weeks to count the ballots. When it came time to go, we left. Election day, end of the night, this is who won. Boom. What should I say? What should I say? Okay? So Chassidus classically asks the question, what do you mean, ki mei tzeischem eretz Mitzrayim, like the days? And what does Chassidus answer classically? Every single day since we left Egypt is an experience of the Exodus from Egypt. Even the days that we don't actually emancipate ourselves from Egypt, even those days in our history where we fell on our faces, those too are part of another step up in the emancipation from Egypt that leads us and ultimately catapults us to the Geula through Mashiach. So yeah, Moshe is setting it up here. Either it's going to finally play itself out in the Geula right now, or they're going to fall on their faces. He's going to energize them. Either it's going to work or it's not going to work.
Hashem is concurring with spies. Then why?
What does concurring mean?
Concurring means, yeah, they need to stay with you for another 40 years.
He's not concurring with them.
I mean, it's silently concurring, I guess.
Concurring is not the right word. What they did was wrong, and Hashem says it's wrong.
Then why reward the spies with what they wanted? 4 years is exactly what they wanted. 4 years in the desert.
It's a consequence. It's a result, not a concurrence. When the teacher tells the student, if you say you can't do it, when the teacher tells, no, it's not acquiescence at all. The teacher is not happy when he tells the student, if you think you can't do it, you can't do it. Just do whatever you can and we'll go from there. No, the teacher's not acquiescing. If the teacher is acquiescing, he has failed.
So can I? Maybe the question is, why didn't Hashem say, "Don't do this"?
We got 3,000 years of that question.
I know, but
So it's just another one of them.
there must have been maybe a dialogue between him. Hashem,
No, Hashem,
Moshe knew that Hashem
because
doesn't want
ultimately this is another step in Yetzias Mitzrayim.
this. But Moshe
The
knew-
40 years in the desert, in the end, I'll ask my classic question. 40 years we wandered in the desert. Good news or bad news? What's the answer? Exactly.
So why Tisha B'Av then? Why Tisha B'Av?
Because.
I want a question. Why did that?
Because Shabtai Tzvi said there's no reason to celebrate Tisha B'Av anymore, no reason to fast on Tisha B'Av anymore. I'm here, Mashiach has come already, no reason to be, right? Wrong. Wrong. Tisha B'Av has both elements in it. Ta'anit and mourning and sitting on the floor, etc., while simultaneously anticipating, yearning for, and believing that this any second Mashiach is going to come.
So Hashem wanted us to create Tisha B'Av?
One question. Why did this?
If Hashem didn't want us to create Tisha B'Av, there wouldn't be a Tisha B'Av. Ultimately, Hashem is in control of
He lets
everything.
it happen.
Doesn't feel like it.
What does lets it happen mean? Hashem still controls everything. Okay, you just stepped into free choice versus divine providence. That is completely not the topic for tonight.
Why did he,
But the fact of the matter is, both are absolutely true simultaneously. Go ahead.
why did the 60-year-old get these?
Why did what?
The people who are
Who
old-
says they did?
It says that, like, it says that.
No, it doesn't say. It says over. It doesn't say over 60 will get to see it. It just says everyone between 20 and 60 is for sure going to die.
There must have been some people over 60.
Yeah.
Did they get to see it?
It would seem that they passed away, natural causes. I'm still trying to finish my class
How do
here.
you
Go.
reconcile Hashem's 13 attributes of mercy with
What?
How do you reconcile Hashem's 13
You got to listen to the podcast.
Oh, boy.
I'm sorry. I answer this question. You keep asking the same question, you know.
On this matter, just to, if we can finish on this, can we say that Moshe knew Hashem is not happy with this decision, but he's saying, you want to do it, go ahead and do it? Do we know that?
Even that is problematic. Is it reasonable to say, chas v'shalom, that Moshe Rabbeinu chose to do something that Hashem was not happy with? It's not reasonable to say.
Okay.
that.
the
So the only way to
seven
explain it is according to Chassidus. There's no other way to explain it.
So the seven
What?
midot is
Could he say no? Could Hashem, Moshe Rabbeinu say no? We're not doing this?
Could Hashem have said no?
No, Moshe Rabbeinu.
Clearly,
He could have said no.
that's what it seems.
Okay.
In the straightforward reading of the pasuk. Now, so now let's go to
the
Yericho.
seven midot. Or this,
So in other words, the bottom line is, this was a huge task. Hashem tells Moshe, maybe they're not ready yet to achieve this task from the bottom up. But if they are going to be ready, it's going to have to be Shelach L'cha. They're going to have to use energy from the all-encompassing soul, you. By contrast, when Hashem is talking to Yoshua, Yericho is considered the minol shel Eretz Yisrael, the doorway, the door and the doorknob into Eretz Yisrael. So again, the three garments, thought, speech, and action, are the doorway to entering into the actual soul. The conquering of the thought, speech, and action, Hashem sees as an imperative prerequisite if we're going to actually have the conquest of the 7 nations of Canaan, of the 7 midos.
Maybe the fact that they asked for meat in the last chapter, and now this is the part of their punishment.
This is a Chabad house, and we don't use the word punishment.
Or elevation.
It's not in our. Yes. Yes. Yes, I just said every single event that takes place is another step in elevation. Yeah. Yeah, they're asking for meat, the complaining when they're traveling the first 3 days, all those things, every single step of the way is another step in the elevation.
What's the point of the Sissits being so close to this portion?
Oh, that's definitely not tonight. So the bottom line is the doorway. All they need to conquer is the doorway entering into Eretz Yisrael. And Hashem gives the command, go, and what goes on in the Haftorah? They hear from Rachav. Why don't they turn around and leave? They already hid. Why don't they go through the rest of the country? Why do they do nothing else? They never even make it into the city of Yericho. You know why? In a simple understanding. They get the reports from Rachav. What does she say? No, everyone is terrified of you. Everyone knows you're coming. Everyone. Vanishma vayimas levavenu. We heard about everything that you've done in the past. including the conquering of Sichon of Og, and our hearts melted. For like, there's no more person, no one here that has a spirit that is going to be able to stand up to you. Because the Lord your God, that's what they needed to hear. And they said, okay, we've conquered the thought, speech, and action of the 7 midos. It's already conquered. Now we just have to actually transform the midos themselves.
How does that apply to us? If we conquer speech and action, thought, speech, and action,
Then the next
therefore-
step will be to start to elevate our midos. But what's expected of every single person, the conquering of the midos is already a very high level. Okay,
what do
we
mean
went
by
off on a million tangents tonight. Here's the bottom line that the Rebbe wants you to know from this. What the Rebbe got out to, the bottom line was, go conquer your 3 garments. That's something every one of us needs to do, and every one of us is capable of doing. Don't worry if you have not yet achieved the goal of transforming your actual midos. Don't worry about that. You may spend the rest of your life struggling and never actually conquer your midos. But your machshava dibur u'maaseh, that's a job that Hashem has said you and I must do, and therefore can do. That's the Rebbe's takeaway. That's the whole conversation. That's what the Rebbe wants us to take away from that. So we have to work on that.
That's it.
Yeah. I'm working like crazy on it, right? We make all kinds of delicious food in this kitchen. And I have to keep walking past it and going to my green juice. I don't have any other choice. And I look at the food and I'm like, okay, can I have a little bit? No. Even when we sit down to dinner upstairs, my dinner looks very different than everybody else's. Mine is like what you give to a rabbit.
You should be able to have a little bit of it.
Soon. I'm still in the middle of a cleanse. Eventually.
That's what it is.
Bezrat Hashem. In good health for everybody. Right? Masa. Dibur. I have a very dear friend who's been he doesn't live in the neighborhood anymore, but still a dear friend, one of our first congregants from 40 years ago. Yeah? And I used to watch him conduct business. He had a business downtown where it's rough and tumble, all kinds of negotiations. Like I'm selling this cloth to you at $1.25 a yard. I'm barely making any money. Can you sell it to me for 95 cents? And then the haggling starts back and forth. I'm not going a penny more than $1. I just told you my cost is 110. And I'm watching this, and it's usually in Farsi, the conversation, but I can follow what's going on. And then finally, when he realizes that the customer is just a drei cup, in Yiddish we call it a drei cup, it's just here to drive him crazy. I used to watch his face. I knew it was coming because I watched the negotiation. His face would light up with a gigantic smile, and his eyes would open big with this huge smile. So Lebanon is eingesandt. He's still alive. He should live and be well. And he'd look at the guy, and he with this gigantic smile on his face, and he would say, "I love you," in the loudest way, in English. They're not in Farsi. "I love you." And I was very young at the time when I used to watch him do this. And I thought to myself, wow, because I'm a hothead from Brooklyn. At this point in the conversation, I would say, dude, I'm counting to 5. If you're not out of my face, I take no responsibility for what happens to you next. Okay? And here he looks at the guy who just drove him nuts for no reason. No reason. He was never planning on buying in the first place. And when he realizes the guy was just a drei cup driving him nuts, looked at him, huge smile, and genuine. I love you. Wow. Very impressive. Very impressive. L'chaim, everybody. We should all merit to be what was supposed to be. Just take control, thought, speech, and action, and the conquest of the nations of Canaan will happen by itself. HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless us that we should shlach l'cha. We should be able to have true knowledge, das, the true effect on the world around us, and bring Mashiach now.
Do you have any advice on taking control of thoughts? 'Cause
Yeah, redirect. Think of something good. Yeah, think something positive. Redirect. That's what it says. That's my advice.
Right away, bring something.
Think of
bring
something
the opposite right away.
immediately.
Because you can't stop the beginning of the thought.
Correct.
Just bring the opposite. Very good. Thank you so much.
Think of something stupid to say. Don't say it. L'chaim, everybody. Good
Thank
night.
you, Rabbi.
This is where we clap. Okay.